your verdict. Give us the answer.
Professor M.B. Singh, renowned constitutional law scholar and presently the Vice Chancellor of the National University of Juridical Sciences. So thank you for taking time out for this interview. To start off with, I'd like to ask you something about your childhood days, about your early childhood experiences. Could you please tell us something about that?
Thank you, Karan. Asking these questions, I think they are relevant for the present generation of students. I was born in a small village in western UP in the district of Meerut, and my early education in a farmer's house was informal. At some point, a Brahmin came to the village. He collected all the young boys at that time. Girls didn't go to school. And he started teaching us all the subjects. That is how it started. Later on, I went to a government primary school and then to a high school, again in the village. Finally, it is 11th class onwards that I started going to Meerut. But while I was studying in the school or college, I was also looking after my farming activities. There were people in the house who were basically literate, but not highly qualified, so there was very little guidance about the education. But my grandfather, who actually brought me up, he was very particular about educating the children in the family, and therefore all his 5 children at least were literate, including my 2 aunts and his 3 sons. It is in that background that he wanted. Moreover, in the village there used to be at that time litigation, a lot of litigation, and perhaps he suffered at the courts or maybe at the level of the lawyers also. So he thought that perhaps law education is an important education. So I remember, although I started my legal education after his death, but I remember that he always used to tell me, without legal education, education is incomplete. Therefore, you should do law. Unlike one of my cousins who did his MA, after graduation he wanted me to do law. And perhaps it is that wish of my grandfather that I decided to take admission in law after my BA. I continued in the same college at Meerut College, which was under the Agra University at that time, and I did my law from there. While I was a law student, I had 2 of my teachers out of 5 who had LLM degree, one from London, another from Lucknow. And I realized that these 2 teachers were different from the other 3 in respect of their understanding, in respect of their way they would handle the subject in the class and even outside the class. And somehow, therefore, I was attracted towards doing my LLM. So I made it a goal that I'll pass out with a first class in LLB and then will seek admission in LLM in some university.
So given the background that you mentioned, because you didn't come from a family of lawyers,
right,
was it in any way an impediment to your legal education, or were you able to get the guidance from other sources?
The only impediment which could be was the language. That until my BA, though of course I had studied English as a subsidiary subject, but my medium of education was Hindi. And therefore, when I joined law, I found that suddenly I am at a big disadvantage, because the medium of instructions as well as medium of examination, everything was in English. But I did not lose courage and decided that I will continue irrespective of these drawbacks and weaknesses. The only guidance came from my teachers and seniors, from whom I from time to time sought guidance as to how should I study, what books I should study, and whenever things were not clear, I would also discuss with them and talk to them. That is how it went on. And after I somehow, as I wished, got a first class in LLB, I decided to take admission in LLM. And fortunately, I got admission in Lucknow University in LLM class, where I met Professor Shukla as my teacher of constitutional law, and later on also as the Dean Faculty of Law at that university. Before that, I had been to Allahabad University also. There I had met shortly Professor P.K. Tripathi, who was the dean at that time there. But I could not take admission there. Ultimately, I came to Lucknow. At Lucknow, of course, Professor Shukla, being dean, did not have much time to take classes or to guide us. But his overall personality and his book on constitutional law was a great inspiration, particularly to me. Some of us did not take him that seriously, but I took him seriously from the very beginning.
So one question I'd like to ask you was, at what point did you realize that you wanted to pursue something in the research stream? You wanted to do something regarding legal education, where probably a more conventional alternative would be to take up litigation and practice as a lawyer.
Karan, until I was doing my LLB, I was just thinking in terms of joining the bar, and maybe I'll take up the judicial examination for the post of a Munsi for a civil judge in UP. And that was the idea even after I took admission in LLM. But after having passed LLM first year, which at that time was considered to be a big obstacle, I somehow became confident that I can pursue something more also. And so while I was in LLM second year, more and more I read comparative law, particularly the US Constitution and US writings. I started feeling, why should I become a judge by taking the examination, civil service examination, where I will have no freedom but to follow the precedents laid down by the Supreme Court or the High Court. Why should I not become a professor of law, where I can freely write and express my views? And therefore, from LLM second year, I made up my mind that I'll go for academics.
Yes, sir. So you basically wanted to give free rein to your creative interests and give your own opinions, which is why you probably didn't want to end up as a judge or
that was my impression. Particularly, I remember that one day in the library at Lucknow University Law Library, I was reading a book by Corwin, The Higher Law, perhaps was the title of that book. And while I was reading that book, this idea suddenly came to me, why should I not become one day Corwin, writing something about my constitution, about my law, something different from what normal litigation would involve. And therefore, it is the inspiration which came both by looking at the life of some of the professors as well as by looking into the writings which came across, particularly when I studied comparative law and legal theory, jurisprudence particularly. Yes.
So, sir, when you were going through this phase of learning, where you were reading up books by different authors and then you were increasing your knowledge base, so was there any particular individual or any particular lawyer who influenced you in a way which changed the way you think about law?
Definitely, means at LLB level, there was one Professor Chopra, who taught us law of torts in the first year, and the taxation law in second year. He taught both laws in such a interesting manner that I always felt that whether I can explain something so smoothly if I am asked to do so. That was one influence. But more than that, there was another professor there, our head of the department, Professor R.P. Sharma. On my after my LLM, I came back to Meerut College to start teaching. And Professor R.P. Sharma was not that close to me while I was a student. But when I became a teacher at Meerut College, law teacher, then he was my head of the department. I even started staying in one of his outhouses along with my wife, and therefore I became a sort of family member. It was great learning to be with him in that close contact. At Lucknow, definitely, so far as Professor Shukla was concerned, although he was very busy, but somehow I always felt like coming close to him. And therefore, I always consulted him. I wrote my LLM dissertation also under him. And although people were doubtful whether he would have time and read my dissertation, but I remember that he read every word of it in my own presence. Whenever he will have time, he will call me up and he will read it in my presence rather than saying to me that you just wait, I'll read and send back. From Meerut, then in 1970, after the death of Professor R.P. Sharma, somehow I felt like that the place has become strange to me, and I moved to Delhi University. And there again, fortunately for me, Professor P.K. Tripathi was the Dean Faculty of Law at that time. So his presence, his guidance and his scholarship, that again influenced me, and somehow he also developed a liking for me and started encouraging. My relationship with him continued until he died in the beginning of 2001. And I was so much influenced by his scholarship that I decided to publish a first shift in his honor when he finally retired at 65 from Delhi University in 1989. And so these three persons, R.P. Sharma, P.N. Shukla and P.K. Tripathi, I consider that they made both my personality as well as whatever I have been able to do in the field of law.
Yes. So holistically looking at all the years that have passed, so you've done a lot of quality research in constitutional law, in human rights law. Could you pinpoint a few instances for us which you think really brought about a dramatic change in your perception of these subjects, and what changed your focus in these subjects?
There are certain issues which have always been dear to me, maybe because of my background.
Yes.
Equality has been one of them, and knowing that formal equality would not help the kind of people amongst whom I have grown up, I always like the provisions in the Constitution which provide for affirmative action or protective
Yes.
discrimination, as people call it. And therefore I developed some kind of special interest in that area. The related area was the problem of minorities. And again, among the minorities, it is not only the religious or linguistic minorities which I would be worried about. My concern was that even the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes are part of the minorities. And so my interest in them also from the very beginning, even for my LLM, I did my dissertation on the problem of the minorities in the country. And I think it is in this relation that I developed then the idea of human rights also. And so my later concern has been, which is also the present concern, the horizontal application of the human rights.
Yes.
That the weak in the society would not get his or her dignity realized unless all of us help them in realizing that dignity.
Yes.
Purely asking them to seek their dignity against the state would not be enough. Their dignity is violated every day by every one of us. And for that reason, it is necessary that the human rights must apply horizontally. Everybody must respect each other's human right. Then only the human rights would be realized. So these are several connected issues with which I think it is the common thread which runs through them, and that is of the weaker sections of the society. How should they be helped? I do not come from the so-called backward classes or any class which gets reservation under the constitution. But I don't know why my attachment towards that section of the society has always been there, and I think it is a sort of passion, not simply an attachment. I feel very strongly.
Yes. So, sir, when you were advocating your views on the minorities and how positive action should be taken to further their interests, at any point did you face any opposition from any of your colleagues or any other members of the academia? So, were your views well accepted, and if they were not, how did you seek to answer those criticisms?
Yeah, the earlier things, when I wrote the first paper on jurisprudential foundations of affirmative action
Yes, sir.
under the Constitution of India, sometime in 70s,
Yes.
senior people like Professor M.P. Jain and some others, including Professor Bakshi in a conference I remember organized by Aligarh University. They thought that I was a upcoming scholar and was having some funny ideas about the constitution and understanding of jurisprudence. But when finally that paper developed, many people liked it.
Yes, sir.
And everybody took it that it is some sort of philosophical or theoretical writing, and it's okay, it is one's view. The opposition came when this Mandal Commission was implemented by the government in 1990. At that time, everybody, particularly in North India, in Delhi and around, was against that decision among the academia. And I, because of maybe my background and understanding of the constitution and law, as a law teacher I said, but what is unconstitutional in it? It may be a wrong policy decision, but so far as its constitutionality is concerned, legality is concerned, I don't see any drawback in it. And but people would not listen to it. We organized a meeting also in Delhi University. I made a presentation, and I asked all my colleagues, tell me any constitutional weakness you find in it.
Yes, sir.
I'll answer that.
Yes, sir.
And perhaps no question came, or whatever questions came, I answered them. There were, of course, policy issues people were raising, what would be its impact on society, this, that. Now, those are issues on which we may have our difference of opinion. But so far as constitutional questions were concerned, I think I had my ground.
Yes, sir.
And I was very happy that when later on in Indira Sahni's case, the government decision was upheld by the court.
Would you say that your decision to pursue academic interests, was it influenced in any way because of the fact that you felt really strongly about certain issues and the fact that you could publish articles, involve yourself in research on particular areas? So do you think that it provided a forum for you to express your views?
Definitely, although of course I have not been able to write that much as I should have, and for that sometimes I feel that maybe that somewhere my background has its influence on me.
Yes,
In terms of language, in terms of family conditions, in terms of looking after not only me and my nucleus family, but also the larger family in the village. Much of my time was taken, and attention also taken by other things. But even then, whenever I felt strongly about something, I have been able to write. Occasionally I wrote in the newspapers also.
Yes.
Whenever I felt that something constitutionally requires to be told, I have told that wherever I got the opportunity.
yes.
Yeah.
So then, sir, another question that I wanted to ask you was, so you've held several administrative posts. You've previously been the Dean of the Faculty of Law at Delhi University. So how would you find a balance between your administrative responsibilities and pursuing your academic interests?
Karan, I have seen that quite often, I say this also, that I have a sort of single track mind. When I am doing administration, my academic activity always suffers. Because I feel that now this is important, this must be done, this.
Yes.
So while I was Dean for 3 years in Delhi University, I could hardly do academic activity apart from, of course, encouraging my colleagues, encouraging my students, and having written something along with them. Apart from that, there was very little which I could do independently as an individual.
Yes, sir.
Same I find after taking up this responsibility also, that Shukla's revision would have been completed in another 4 weeks, but after joining this place, it took me nearly 2 years to finish that, which also I could do only during summer vacations in 2008. And same I am feeling now also, though of course, for example, I have been writing something for the NUJS Law Review,
Yes,
which I have taken the responsibility of editing also,
yes, sir.
and some minor things here and there, but no major project I am able to take up. And frankly speaking, I don't repent it. I feel that my leadership for my colleagues and for my students
Yes, sir.
is as much important as my scholarship for myself.
Yes.
And therefore, if I can ignite some, if not in Abdul Kalam's words, fire, but some inspiration to do something, I think that would be equally great, or rather a bigger achievement for me than writing a paper or even writing a book. So that way I see.
Yes, sir. But so then, just to summarize your advice to those people who want to pursue academic interests, who want to involve in quality research, to them it would be that they should draw a clear line between their administrative responsibilities, if at all they want to pursue them. But for them, it's advisable that they spend their own time doing the research and then they demarcate their administrative responsibility.
Right, and I have seen also and learnt a little bit from the civil law system that the universities there in Germany, particularly where I have stayed for a long time, they are run almost exclusively by the academics. That the vice chancellors of the university are elected by the professors or the deans in the university. And they are elected for 3 years or 5 years. And a person knows that those 3 years or 5 years have to be devoted exclusively for the improvement and running of the university. And therefore he sets aside those 3 years or 5 years for that purpose. So I don't mind if my 3 years or 5 years are spent in this job, but during that time I am able to establish something. I will consider it waste if I am unable to do anything. That perhaps I would have done something better by doing my own research. But if I am able to inspire a few students, a few colleagues, and create some kind of better academic culture, I feel that I have been successful.
So when you look at the current generation of lawyers today, so one very obvious trend that is clearly visible for young law graduates is that they always seem to prefer a corporate law job, or they always seem to prefer joining these big law firms over a career in litigation. And you'll hardly find any fresh law graduate who is looking to be a judge, who is looking to enter the Indian judiciary. So how would you seek to redress this imbalance, given the fact that especially those people who come from poor backgrounds, they need financial stability at an early point in their career. So how do you address this imbalance?
Karan, it has started only with the establishment of these law schools. It was not there even in the law school for several years. But as the legal education became expensive, and the liberalization came in 91, suddenly there was a demand of lawyers in the corporate world. And some of the vice chancellors at that time started arguing that let the law school produce corporate lawyers because there is a demand of corporate lawyers in the market. And therefore a sort of advertisement for corporate houses was done in the law schools by some of the leaders of the academics. That also led to a new kind of culture. Otherwise you would find that the persons who did law in the first 2-3 batches of NLS Bangalore, many of them went to different avocations rather than going to corporate houses or to the law firms. So the education becoming expensive requires taking loans, and the students then are already under debt, and they are looking for something by which they can discharge their debts. And they find that the corporate houses are offering good jobs where they get a initial good salary, and therefore they join them. That is one reason. The other is that the lawyers do not actually give that kind of encouragement. Firstly, if you go to the senior lawyers, they will say, I have no place. And even if they agree to give a place, they don't give you anything. Maybe they don't even care whether you are learning anything or not learning anything. I'm not saying that there are no exceptions, there are exceptions, but by and large that is the position, that you have to stand off your own along with a lawyer for a number of years and learn to practice. The third thing could be that also now by and large this is a new development, that all over the world lawyers are creating law firms. That instead of individual lawyers doing the practice, they do it in an organization. And there, of course, some of them are the arguing counsel, some of them are doing the solicitor's job. So it is also a new kind of development that is taking place in the legal profession itself. So I think in any case the old kind of lawyer is still required only in the mufassil areas or in the district courts. But the new kind of lawyer would be different for Supreme Court and the High Courts.
So what would your advice be to those students who don't have a family background, who don't have lawyers in their family? So how would you advise them to overcome the initial struggle of not having contacts in the legal field?
In that case, I would wish that if the bar wants them to come to the bar, then it will have to evolve some system by which it can help them in the initial stages to settle down in the profession. And we need good lawyers as much at district level as we need at the High Court and the Supreme Court level. I doubt whether those who pass out from these national law schools, any one of them ever returns to a mufassil area or a district court.
So would you agree with Mr. Ghulam Bhanumati's advice, where he said that there should be a moral obligation at least on every lawyer to nurture further talent and to encourage people to enter litigation and help them on their way?
Right, that even if they don't pay,
Yes, sir.
at least they should take interest in the training of the lawyers. That they should give them files, they should discuss with them, give them some time. But as I hear from the young trainees with the seniors, their complaint generally is that they hardly care whether I am studying anything, whether I am coming to the office or I am not coming to the office. So unless they are paying something, they would never care whether you are taking interest in anything.
Yes, sir. So you are presently the Vice Chancellor of a national law school. So one question that I wanted to pose to you was, so what is the difference in the education that you received from a conventional law school and a national law school, which has been initiated by the vision of Dr. N.R. Madhava Menon? So what would be the essential points of difference between these two?
The essential point of difference is the kind of attention which is paid by the faculty to the students. The number of students in the new law schools is much smaller than the number of students in the law faculties. And therefore, there is a closer association between the student and the teacher. Secondly, there is a greater emphasis on keeping the students engaged with the teacher in some activity or the other, by way of projects, by way of viva, by way of midterm exam or something, which we find missing so far as the big universities.
The conventional universities will just probably have one end semester assessment,
Right.
but nothing in between. So here, like you mentioned, we have the project evaluation system,
Right.
whereby a student is constantly engaged.
Yes. And therefore the students gets more opportunity to learn more things
Yes, sir.
within that time, whether it is mooting, whether it is clinical education,
Yes, sir.
whether it is writing skills, whether it is research skills, all of them are imparted to the students in a consistent and constant manner.
Yes, sir.
In the bigger universities that does not happen. The difference could be that in Delhi University, for example, all students have first at least a graduate degree.
Yes, sir.
Some of them also have postgraduate degrees. Some of them have even administrative and other experience because we don't have age bar.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And therefore senior students working in the government, several IAS and IFS officers also take admission.
Yes, sir.
And therefore the professor has to raise his level at the lecture stage, that he has to speak at a little higher level than the level at which I feel we speak to the students in the law schools.
Yes, sir.
But the intensity of the work in the law faculties is not that much as here.
Yes, sir.
So both the students as well as teachers have to do much by themselves rather than
Yes.
coming together. So that difference is there.
Yes.
But whether these law schools have achieved a particular vision, I am not sure exactly what was the vision. Originally, Professor Madhava Menon had thought that he would create good lawyers, litigating lawyers,
Yes, sir.
by giving a good training,
Yes,
particularly with clinical training. But so far as that objective is concerned, that has not been achieved.
Yes,
So to that extent, I think there has not been much success.
The initial objective with which Professor Menon thought of doing this
Yeah.
was to get the very competent legal personnel
Right.
at the bar. But
Yes.
sir, a recent statistic has shown that more than at NLU Jodhpur,
Yeah.
at the recruitment sessions, more than 90% of the students opted for non-litigation careers. So from
Yeah.
that perspective, at least, sir, you would say that the objective has not been fulfilled.
No, that is what I am saying, that therefore that objective has not been achieved.
Yes.
And whether the lawyers have not been trained that way, which makes them good for the courts, or is it the attraction of other jobs?
Yes, sir.
I am not quite sure, but I am quite sure that Professor P.K. Tripathi in Delhi University, when Professor Menon wanted this kind of education to be introduced in Delhi University,
Yes, sir.
he used to ask Professor Menon that, Professor Menon, the kind of legal education which you want to impart in the law school, that can never be imparted in the law school. Practice is a thing which has to be learnt in the courts, and therefore law schools cannot be a substitute for learning, for practice in the courts.
Would you feel that there is a practical difficulty in the
Yeah.
vision itself, sir? Because when Professor Menon wanted more students to join the bar,
Yeah.
and having said that, the emphasis has to be given on the practice element also to the internships. So at the same time, the national law schools afford very little time for any student, not more than 2 months in a year, to intern at any with an advocate, for example. So don't you think this is a very practical difficulty?
Internships are very good opportunity to know the reality of life in various spheres, because the internships are not only with the lawyers and in the courts, they involve other areas also. Yet, as you yourself mentioned, a small period of 2 months is not enough for that purpose.
Yes.
It has to be consistently learnt. Just as you have studied in law school for 5 years, you require at least 1 or 2 years to learn the tricks of the trade, the practice aspect. And for that, definitely these short internships are not enough. They are simply an exposure, but they are not enough. They again help you in getting training in many areas in which people in traditional universities don't get.
Yes.
But they don't make you perfect.
So I also wanted to ask you, sir, when you come to, since you're the Vice Chancellor, so what would be your vision for NUJS? How would you want to take things forward from here?
Yeah, just few minutes back I mentioned to you the difference of perception between Professor Menon and Professor Tripathi.
Yes.
Menon thought that law schools could be a substitute to the training in the bar. Professor Tripathi thought that law schools are for training the students in the concepts of law. I somehow stand on the side of Professor Tripathi's vision that law schools are primarily for the purpose of giving the best understanding of law and the legal principles to the students,
Yes, sir.
on the basis of which they can build their arguments as practical lawyers,
Yes, sir.
as academic lawyers, or whatever.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, law schools' greatest emphasis must be on as higher understanding and its imparting to the students
Yes, sir.
as possible,
Yes, sir.
rather than emphasizing exclusively from the point of view of the court practice.
Yes, sir.
That is what I feel. So I would therefore wish
Yes, sir.
that while the NUJS must continue with all those programs with which it is started, it should strengthen its academic program. Its faculty must have a better understanding of the conception of law in different areas.
Yes.
And they would have it only by not merely reading the existing material, but by the analysis of existing material in terms of future needs of our society, so that they can build new ideas, new knowledge.
Yes, sir.
And that new knowledge must be imparted to our students. That is how I would perceive that the law school must be. I am not saying that it must stop any of those existing programs which are relevant for the purpose of practice as well as which are relevant for the purpose of skill learnings.
Yes, sir.
But it should not stop at that. It must be more than that.
Yes, sir.
My argument is that where is the opportunity after you have left the law school to learn the conception of law and to create the knowledge of law?
Yes, sir.
It should emerge from here.
Okay, sir.
That is what I feel.
So with regard to the national law schools, so have you personally faced any problems with respect to the infrastructure that is provided? And so what do you think, what changes can be brought about to make it a better institution?
Karan, my primary exposure has been to NUJS among the law schools. Of course, I have been to NLS as well as Nalsar, but I could not closely watch them. On arrival here, I found that several essential things that should have been here were not here. Means the facilities for faculty as well as for the students. And among them these days the most important is the information technology. The infrastructure for that purpose within the university as well as its connectivity with the international materials which are available online.
Yes, sir.
We have been from the very beginning working in that direction.
Yes, sir.
Some achievement has been made in the sense that many of the materials are now available in the library. Library hours have been increased. Library also have a limited Wi-Fi facility. And then some other facilities within the hostels and within the campus have been created. The work with ARNET has to start any time now.
Yes, sir.
And we hope that by the time you come back after summer vacations,
Yes, sir.
everything would be in place.
Yes.
I consider that in the modern times, apart from library,
Yes, sir.
these internet facilities are very, very important, rather absolutely necessary for conducting any serious research.
So, and several internet databases, as I hear, are sought to be introduced, so which will facilitate a lot of research, because a lot of international journals might not be available, but if they're available online, the students can obviously access them.
Right. So some of them we have already actually made arrangements for, and I think by and large all the important ones are now available.
Yes, sir.
Some others would be available maybe on exchange basis. For example, NUJS Law Review is being demanded by several international websites.
Yes, sir.
And in return we can get access freely
Yes, sir.
to number of other journals.
Yes, sir.
And therefore this kind of, moreover, we are having more and more MOUs with the foreign universities,
Yes,
as a result of which students as well as scholars from abroad
Yes, sir.
are coming. At the same time, our students also, they have been going before also, but now they have started going on exchange basis also.
Yes, sir.
And as you might be knowing, quite a few of our teachers also are already abroad doing their research for PhD or other degrees. And they are frequently visiting those universities. Foreign scholars also coming to us.
Yes, sir.
That way, the kind of academic exchange that should take place, or flow of academic knowledge, you can say, that is very much enriching so far as NUJS is concerned.
Professor Singh, could you please tell us something about the diversity project that has been initiated at NUJS and how you've actively participated in this project?
After some experience in NUJS, I realized that a vast majority of the students come from a particular kind of family background, and those who come from different family background, they are not only a minuscule minority, but also invisible, means that they don't seem to be actively participating in any of the activities. Most of the problems also in relation to the discipline and other things, they also came to be coming from particular strata of the students. Now, in view of all this, I always felt that, moreover, yes, one thing more, that I also realized that the students are interested in certain kinds of legal issues and certain kind of problems which may be relevant for a very small section of the society, but not for society in general, so far as the Indian scene is concerned. And in view of that, I felt that the law school's culture need to be changed. The students have to be, because it doesn't matter, students may come from any background, but they have to be told that the society to which you belong, they require different kind of services from you. And for that reason, therefore, they have to be told about the current issues, current problems which the society is facing. At the same time, amongst them, a few people have to be brought, students have to be brought from different area or from different sections of the society. Means, for example, my own perception of law and perception of legal issues may be different because I come from a different background. And for that reason, therefore, I thought that why not change the present system of admissions.
So but then going back to the point that you made, where initially, since you didn't have an English education, so there were some problems that you faced starting off.
Right.
So do you think those issues can be addressed in some way? Because probably that would be one of the major impediments to any student who wants to have a law school education, and every activity conducted here is in English.
Yeah. So far as I am concerned, I could overcome it without any support or without any training from anywhere. But if we find that language is a impediment, and it is to a great extent, then we can make arrangements. We already had a English teacher here, but nobody went to her class for the simple reason that most of the students who are coming here, they are English medium school educated, so they hardly need that kind of education. But if we have students from different backgrounds, perhaps this teacher would be relevant. Maybe this teacher can be utilized for other purposes, means for the purpose of diction, for the purpose of writing style, rather than simply teaching English. And that arrangement can be made. But diversity thing I actually emphasized in the CLAT meeting on 4th of November last year, when the current CLAT was being prepared, designed. And there I wrote to them that we have to ensure, I just read out a sentence from that letter which I wrote on 4th of November 2009.
Yes, sir.
The current admission process ensures entry of those who have a certain kind of educational and family background with the capacity and opportunity to have tuition for CLAT. Consequently, not only we do not get the best candidates, but also get the ones who do not represent the diversity of values in our life and society, and rather distort them. So this is the kind of situation in the law schools today, and therefore we must change it. And while in connection of one research, I had to write to a friend in England, Tarunav Khetan, that I feel out of place in the law school, and therefore I often feel like leaving it and doing something different rather than being here. It is in response to that he said, no professor, instead of you leaving it, you change it. Change is required, and therefore take up a diversity project.
Yes.
And while correspondence was going on between me and Tarunav, I mentioned these things to Shamnad also.
Yes, sir.
And in between Tarunav came here, he spoke about it. And Shamnad, as a young energetic person, immediately picked it up, and he has now developed a full-fledged plan
Yes, sir.
which he wants to implement at the national level.
Yes, sir. Could you tell us a little bit about this plan? What are the steps that are undertaken to execute this plan?
It has several steps. First is that an institution or a body is being created at NUJS. At the moment it is informal,
Yes, sir.
but the plan is to create a trust or a society which will implement the diversity project throughout the country for getting access to law schools for all sections and segments of the society, primarily the weaker sections of the society. And for that purpose, therefore, different areas in the country will be identified where students and parents will be made aware about the importance of the legal education.
Yes, sir.
And the means its future prospects.
Yes.
Means what do you get out of it?
The point that you mentioned about educating the parents also, I think it's a
Yeah.
very relevant point.
Right.
So, because given the perception, given the mindset of the society today, only the conventional streams of education and academic pursuits are given preference. So to shift that mentality, will you be talking to the parents as well?
Yeah, that is what we will do, because parents as well as to the heads of the academic institutions
Yes,
also,
yes.
because legal profession is generally in the rural areas is despised. Even in the urban areas,
Yes,
people think that it is not a decent person's job. Apart from those families where there have been decent lawyers and their importance is understood,
Yes, sir.
the general perception is that the lawyer is somebody who robs your money or plays all kinds of tricks, and therefore they would like to avoid their children to come to law and legal education. Therefore, this needs to be actually explained to them, and also they have to be told about the future of law in this country and in international globalized world.
So, is there any possibility that the CLAT committee, because at this point of time it is just a personal initiative on your part, is there a possibility that the CLAT committee will take it up as an initiative on their part also?
We hope that there is a better understanding on the part of the members of the CLAT committee.
Yes.
Interestingly, next year NUJS has to organize CLAT, and therefore we will be the host institution, and perhaps we can have greater impact in the formulation of the policies of the CLAT,
Yes, sir.
and would be able to convince our colleagues in different law schools
Yes, sir.
that it has a distinct advantage. In the meantime, the project which Shamnath has started, it will have some impact. It
Yes.
will also get concretized, and I think the people will then have some faith that it is not a gimmick. It is something which is going to pay us.
Let your verdict give us the answer.